guys, how are ya? Thank you for clicking onto this video. I'm just gonna ask everyone to please subscribe. Help me get to 2,000 subscribers before the end of this month. 2,000 subscribers before the end of this month, please. And please like the video. Let's have a serious discussion. All right? Let's I'm not saying these are my views, but I want us to discuss. You know, I like to have your comments. I want to read your comments, and let's have a serious discussion. Don't beat about the bush. Just be honest, right? This is one thing I've noticed in life. You know, sometimes we hang around in groups that we are familiar with. That means we keep everything that we know around us. We don't try to do something outside of what we know, so we become comfortable. This is why you're going to find that immigrants, when they move to a country, could be any country, they tend to do better than people who live in that country, because you are used to living a certain way. You know, when these immigrants come into your country, they see opportunities. Where for you, because you're used to that, you see obstacles. They come in there, they see opportunities, they take advantage of those opportunities, and they create a better life for them. This is very common. Why am I saying this? Sometimes we like to cancel people that have different views from us without, and this is the important part, without actually listening to them and absorbing the information or what they're saying, and then analyzing it. And then, when you analyze that, come from a point of, don't come from a biased point of view. Just analyze it from a clean slate and see where you end up. That's how you learn. That's how you become a better person. You can't just not grow up with the same views, with the same beliefs all the time. At some point, you gotta do some research. And we need to give ourselves that opportunity where we do some research. We need to do that. You know, if you look at people from India, in India, it's a very sort of class country. You know, where if you are light-skinned, you're more likely to do better. If you're dark-skinned, you're more likely to live in poverty. You know, there's really dark-skinned Indians, and there are light-skinned Indians who look like white people. You know, and there's classes in India. On top of that, there's also tribalism. Africa is not the only continent that faces tribalism. There's tribalism in India. There's, if you are Hindu, if you are Sikh or Sikh, whatever they call them, you are treated differently. Right now, the government that's there is Hindu, so most Hindus are happy. The Sikhs ain't happy. They don't talk nicely of Modi. You know, but that's how things are. You know, however, when you get these people who are so poor from India, and you put them in an American sort of gut, when they move to America, let me just say this, most of these people become successful because they see opportunities. And this is why it is important, it is imperative of all black people to actually have people in our groups that have different views. You know, I listened to Larry Elder and Thomas Sowell. And I gotta say, with Thomas Sowell, I agree with about 58% of things that man says. You know, some, and there's a 42% I don't agree with. So there's a lot of things I don't agree with. But most of the things that he says, I can relate. And he actually has some answers for some of our problems. You know, let's have a discussion with this one. You know, I don't entirely agree with it, but I reckon it could be part of the problem. And if we can find part of the problem, then we can find part of the solution. And then we are getting somewhere, right? Okay. So this is what Thomas Sowell says about African American culture. Thomas Sowell says, it is not racism. You know, he says that it's not racism. It is because Black Americans were robbed of their culture. So what they did, they looked around and copied the culture of the people around them. Remember, slaves and most Europeans, let me tell you something. Most Europeans lived in poverty. I know this is the trick that the media does. They have movies like Downtown Abbey or something like that, where they're showing a particular building of whatever, a prince or a king or something like that. One building. And they're showing everything that's happening in that building. And they're showing the surrounding of that building, which most of the surroundings were kept in clean conditions. And these were the leaders. They were the wealthiest of the wealthiest. They were the elite. What I've noticed the media never shows is how actually ordinary people lived in Europe back in the day. They never show that. They always show, you see, if you've seen the movies are all about, King Charles or this king and that king, and they only show that the bowling girls or whatever they are, and they only show what was happening in the palace. Now, the palaces were nice places, but not everyone lived in palaces. Majority of people in Europe were actually very poor. You know, this is why America saved them. America did not just save England, they saved Italians. Italy, even up to now, they're going through that problem, even though right now the economy is better than it was back then. But in most parts of Italy, people had to leave because they were going to starve to death. People had to leave to go to America, move to Africa. Some of them moved to Africa just for a better life. If you don't know, if you think I'm lying, write in the comments below and I'll get you, I'll send you more information to educate you about that. You know, so Thomas Sowell is saying Black Americans were robbed of their culture. So what is it that they did to absorb or to have a culture? They looked around them and they copied the culture of the people that were around them. And who were these people? These were white, poor white people who were rednecks. And what are the things that rednecks love? Or what are some of the similarities that exist among rednecks? 1, they love Jesus. 2, they have no respect for education. 3, they sort out their issues with violence. You know, you can go to the western part of England, you are going to find these things. You know, violence, uneducated people, and very, very religious. You know, if you go to the northern part of England, it's even worse. It's poverty over there. But that's not just in England. You can go in European countries, you'll find these similarities among poor people. You know, and one of the things that they truly even Ebonics, the so-called American culture, because most of these people who are poor, they don't speak proper English. Let me tell you something. When this guy was writing, what's his name? The guy they talk about as the inventor of English, when he was writing Shakespeare, when he was writing things, you know, 98% of his population was not educated. You know, so is Thomas Sowell true? I think there's a lot of truth to what this man is saying. You know, because I look at American culture, yeah, they love Jesus. Secondly, what is it if there's a wedding, it's a white wedding? The same thing that white people did. If someone dies, most people dress up in black. The same thing white people did. Is that what they did in Africa? No. You know, if you look at the weddings in Africa, even in Africa, people use white weddings. But there's actually now a regeneration of people going back to using their culture. You're going to find like a Yoruba a bride wears something different. You're going to find that most West African tribes in there do, when it comes to weddings, they do it differently. But when African Americans, everything they do is a copycat of what Europeans do. You know, we can even debate whether hip hop is a culture. You know, we can debate that because people like to say, oh, that's our culture. That's our culture. Oh, okay, cool. But I would like to have a debate to see if that's a culture in itself. So is Thomas Sowell right? Or is he wrong? Let me hear your comments. Let's have a discussion about this. Because I reckon once we realize that, then there's things that can start happening to find solutions to those things. That's why things like Kwanzaa, I think they're popping up because people are longing longing to belong to their culture. You know, you find black people celebrating some, crazy stuff, some holidays and all this other crap that has no culture. It's not part of our culture, but we've absorbed that and we don't even know where it came from. Because I tell you what, let me just go back to that. Most of Europe, ordinary Europeans were poor. Even up to today, you are going to find there's violence in Ireland. There's violence in Scotland. There's more people killing each other in Scotland in the last 20 years than in countries like Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Angola combined. So, but what has happened is they look at black Americans and say, oh, they're violent. They even say they're predisposed to violence. But when you go to Africa, you don't see violence if a Western person is not involved in it. Most people would just live in peace. Remember, we never used to have doors on our homes. We never used to do that because people were not killing each other and people were not robbing each other. There's a South African lady who was in Dubai at a conference. And then when they talked about corruption and all this stuff, she said something along the lines of, it is actually you people who brought this corruption to us. And the audience kind of laughed. But what they didn't realize was that she was actually right. There was nothing like corruption. Even leaders, we didn't treat our leaders the way the Europeans did. Leaders were not these dictators. Leaders, anything that was introduced in a community needed to be accepted by almost everyone. It was very democratic. I tell you what, if you read the book of The Destruction of African Culture by what's the black guy's name? You look it up. There's a place where he went, and there's a king there, and there's white people there, and white people have been waiting for this king to allow them to speak to them. And this African American man who wrote this book went there, and he was waiting as well. But the king called him up because he's been black. He's like, these guys, things don't work like that. So I've sent people to go and bring other, let's say the Indunas, as they are called, some of them especially in South Africa, what you call ministers today, to come together to meet me. But these people live in far distances. By then there were no cars or people just had to walk to go to these places until they come. And then we assess and we discuss whether I need to talk to these people. That's when we're going to do that. So they have to wait. And that's how these kings were in Africa. Violence was not a thing. Trust me. Yes, we used to attack each other sometimes. And then things got even worse when, the Arabs and Europeans wanted to trade and all this stuff. It became more about survival. A lot of things. But initially, there was a very minimal violence. Yes, you'd go there maybe and steal. One tribe will go and get cows of other tribe. But there was no killings. There was no killings there. So this is what I would like us to have this discussion and say, is it a copycat of white redneck culture? And if it is, what can we do to undo and actually adopt a culture? Because one thing I've noticed is you can have Italians come from Italy and move to America and they just continue with their culture. And it works well for them. They don't have to adopt the American culture. Obviously, as you grow, there's the things you gotta add onto it. You might like Italian food, but at the same time, you might want to eat Chinese food on Tuesday or something like that. Or, different foods and different things that coming in. However, at the core of you is that Italian culture. So let's have a discussion about how this has impacted African Americans. Because the violence is real and we need to find solutions to that. Thank you guys. Thank you for watching and please subscribe. I want this to be a discussion. I can't wait to see your comments in the comment section. Goodbye and have a great day. Cheers guys. Bye.